Welcome back to the Perky Collar Radio Show on WDRB Media. My next guest today is Troy Thomas, who is the founder of a brand called Fish Face. Can you hear me, Troy?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, Troy. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us, where are you located, by the way?
We are near Chicago.
Near Chicago.
In a small town called Woodstock, Illinois.
Okay, very good. So I'm sure it's nice and warm there, because I know here in Charlotte it's like 15 degrees. So I'm sure there it's negative 15 or colder.
Pretty much, with snow on the ground, yeah.
And I'll be your neighbor here shortly. I'm heading to the Chicago Collective in the middle of February, so I'm going to have a chance to experience the true Windy City. Probably the worst time of the year to come visit, but that's when they pick the trade show to happen. Will you be at that show, by the way?
No, I will not.
No. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, let's talk about Fish Face. Everyone can relate to Fish Face. Our kids all make fish faces. Tell us your why. Why did you start a brand called Fish Face?
I started life as a graphic designer and freelance illustrator in Chicago.
Okay.
After college, but after about 11 years or so, kind of got burnt out on it. And I was always an avid outdoorsman, fisherman, hunter, hiker, canoeist, backpacker, and tried to decide, went to decide what my next career move would be.
Okay.
And realized that my wardrobe consisted of T-shirts because I was a freelancer. I didn't have to always go in and meet clients. And I thought, well, I'll put two things together: my love of the outdoors and my craft as a graphic designer and illustrator. And Fish Face was born. I incorporated in '96, so that's when I kind of say I started the business, even though I did it for a few years before that part-time and trying to get a feel for the business.
Okay, so you started in 1996. So give us an idea of how long you're in corporate America, or what age you decided to start Fish Face. Because I think a lot of our listeners and viewers, they want to start their own brand. They want to bring a product to market. They want to do something for themselves, but they're always like, well, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too this, I'm too that. What point in your life did you start Fish Face?
I was 35 at the time.
35?
Yeah. And, I guess I was young enough to be still, I don't think entrepreneurship has an age, but at the time, I was just eager to start a new career, a new direction in my life, and looking to still be able to spend time at home and with my family and have a business here in town, but not necessarily be supported by a small community like we live in. So, I had seen T-shirt, Life is Good was starting at about the same time, and other T-shirt brands, and I thought, I can do that.
Okay.
So, kind of went in feet first. I had no experience as in the clothing or apparel industry, except for, graphic, when I researched how to produce graphic tees and things like that, it was actually pretty simple. Marketing at the time was, I think, a lot simpler than it is today. So, it was kind of an easy start, to be honest.
Very good. So
and it was had a low entry point as far as financially. You didn't really need a lot of capital to start a T-shirt brand.
Right. So I guess where did you get started? You started with the logo for Fish Face, and then at that point had to figure out where you wanted this logo to appear as far as certain types of T-shirts or certain types of outdoor sports in which you wanted people to wear the logo?
Yeah, it all kind of evolved at once at the same time. I was more into fishing at the time and canoeing and kayaking, so those were the first designs. But I know I wanted to have a brand, so the logo came along with it like all at once, all in the first few years. Developing the graphics were easy. It came easy to me because it was my passion and my love for the outdoors. The Fish Face logo has evolved over the years. It's gotten better. In the beginning, it was just the name Fish Face on the back of the shirt.
Oh, I see. So just the words Fish Face that you started with, besides the actual picture.
Correct. And then now it has no words, but it's this puffy, smiley-looking fish.
Right.
Face.
I think that's where every inventor and entrepreneur wants to start, is the word plus the graphic, and then eventually get rid of the words and just go with the graphic.
Correct.
And how long did it take you to go from that phase of words with the fish face to just the fish face itself? Is it years or months or?
Oh yeah, years. It's been, I've been in business now. I guess I'm approaching 22 years.
Wow.
The logo you currently see has been with me for just only the last three.
I
So,
see.
yeah, so it started out with just the word fish face, then it went to a graphic, the word fish face, and then slowly just dropped it because I noticed that people would see the image and think fish face, and that's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I ended up dropping the words.
Okay. So help us understand the journey you've been on. You have the logo. You had the word just fish face on the back of T-shirts. What was your next step? Because I think a lot of our listeners and people that are watching on YouTube and on social media, they have an idea for a brand, whether it be outdoor brand or a fitness brand or any of those different types of brands. What's the next step? What did you do next after you had this name, Fish Face? Obviously, you recorded with the state of Illinois as a company,
Right.
and at that point, you want to start creating the logo and the graphic designer background. That was easy. So, what was the next step? Did you find someone to source T-shirts, or what did you do next to figure out what you're going to sell with the word Fish Face on it?
Yeah, it's been a long, strange journey because, and a quick sidebar, I probably do it all in reverse now, but this is the way I did it in the beginning. And actually, when I try to, help new folks develop a brand, I tell them the exact opposite of the way I did it. So the way I did it was, I went and first began to try to wholesale the brand. I went to trade shows.
Okay.
Well, even first, I trademarked my name, Fish Face, and actually wasn't my first choice, but it has been the best choice, ironically. And that, how that things just kind of fall into place, or I actually wanted Fish Head. Somebody had already trademarked it, so I went with the next choice, which was Fish Face, and yeah, I've been happy. I've been glad I did. But then after I trademarked it, I sourced with small printing shops around the area and built an inventory, and then headed to trade shows in the Midwest, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Michigan, to try to sell the brand to anybody who would buy it. And in the first 2 years, to be honest, I just about starved to death.
Mm-hmm.
It did not go over. I mean, I had orders, but not enough to make a living. I had kind of phased out of being a freelance illustrator, so I wasn't getting those phone calls anymore, or graphic design. So, I kind of put myself between a rock and a hard place as far as trying to still make a living. And I had a family and to support and so on,
Right.
and still do. But after 2 years, I actually went to a small gift show, like where I had met you this year in Charleston. I thought, all right, time to make it back.
Hey, one choice. Hey, Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost y'all audio for 1 second. There you go. Right. There you go. Can you hear me now, Troy?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're good now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right, so continue where you were. I'm sorry. You were talking about how
Anyway.
you kind of
So anyway, yeah.
you had a family to support, and
Yeah, I mean, we tried wholesaling it, and it wasn't working. So there's a small gift show in my town. We decided to try it. The shirts sold well retail-wise, selling to individuals. And so then the next few years, the tact was I started adding more and more gift shows, and then I could actually make a living at that.
okay.
But I still always pursued wholesaling. And the wholesaling has been a up and down ride, whereas retail wise, selling to individuals has done nothing but grow over the years. And of course, a lot has changed since I started too. I mean, with the internet coming on board, and various marketplaces to be able to sell as well as your own. So yeah, I mean, that's added a third revenue stream to the whole equation. So it's been good.
Is there an ideal percentage of what business you do through wholesale versus retail?
Um, Retail over the last few years, or in the middle of my career, it was about 50-50.
Okay.
But it has swung to where it's more like, to be honest, 80-20, 20% anymore just wholesale. And I think that's an evolution of the internet. The fact that I go after more small and mid-sized accounts versus the large ones. Even though I've been in some decent-sized, mid-sized stores over the years, but because of and again, I think the evolution of the internet and selling online has made that swing to the retail end, greater. And I'm actually happy with it. I really enjoy selling to individuals. They're always, if I can make somebody smile with a shirt on their birthday or Christmas or any other, the holidays or Father's Day. I mean, it's the best thing. And to get, nice little notes back and say, hey, you made my dad happy on Father's Day.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's the best thing.
So since you've gone through this journey, and obviously the internet has changed how people do business, what advice would you give a new entrepreneur that wants to build a brand? Would you tell them to focus on doing the gift shows and get some, sell some merchandise and get it out there? Or do you recommend waiting a certain period of time to get into stores? Or what would you recommend? What would the path you'd send them on currently, based on your experience?
Based on my experience, I would tell them to go try a small craft show or gift show in their area.
Okay.
And see if there's a market for what they think. We always think we have the best ideas,
of course.
And sometimes
it's our baby.
And then when we ask friends and family, and of course they always want to be so supportive, and your kids and whatnot, and aunts and uncles, but nobody will tell you if you have a product that will sell, then strangers that you would meet at a gift or craft show, to see if you really have something, and then build from there, and then I would think the next move would be online, and then maybe the last move would be to wholesale. Because in my experience, it is just the wholesale has gotten really tough.
Sure. Well, the space is so hard to get on into, and stores are wanting to minimize risk, and bringing a new brand in that's unproven is scary to them, and you have to be you have to have a compelling case to explain to them to take this brand out and put my brand in, and with no history with you. That's just tough.
Exactly, and that starts even at the smallest mom and pop gift shops.
Sure.
I mean, they might even have the highest risk because it's their dime that's out there first, to put your product on their shelves. So,
right.
So that's the way I would go about it.
Okay.
And that's the way I tell people who ask me, that I mentor a few, small graphic designers, t-shirt people here locally, and that's what I tell them.
So how do you decide, and maybe it's a collective decision between you and your wife or business partners, but how do you decide what to make, what sizes to make, what colors to make, what color your logo should be? Because obviously SKUs and inventory is definitely the biggest challenge when you decide to build a brand and get t-shirts out there. How do you know because obviously whatever doesn't sell, you got to eat, or you got to liquidate, or give away, or clearance it, or so on and so forth. That's lost revenue.
Yeah,
how do you decide?
Apparel,
do you do 5 sizes per color? Do you have a certain rhythm or rhyme or process you follow for each new design?
Well, in regards to apparel, deciding color, the first thing I look at is my competition, even big or small, and then some of the apparel companies that put out blanks, blank T-shirts or blank clothing, see what they say their trend, what the trends are going to be in colors and fit and fat, and so on. Pantone, which is a company that puts out swatches every year, which they think will be the new trends. Okay. You can look there. But a lot of it's just competition, as well as one of the moves I made is I buy my blanks or my T-shirts from very established brand companies, and you're kind of limited to what colors they put out each year, what they might think. For someone like me who's not actually sewing and making the garments to a specific, cut or fit or whatever, I rely on them. And it's worked well for me too, because then I have a variety of sizes and cuts and finishes, and since they're big companies, those sizes, fits, and colors are always available to me. So that's the approach I've done. As far as graphics, I choose my own graphics and I choose my own style, and I like I said, 20 some years ago, I hope people would like it, and they have. So I don't really go out to look at art or graphic, the graphic trends. I just look for the colors and fit and finish and things like that nowadays.
Sure.
So
That makes sense. And then I'm sure a lot of listeners and people watching on YouTube or on Facebook always wonder, okay, well, what's the minimum quantity? I'd love to get into this kind of business. I'd love to have my own brand. I'd love to have my my graphic out there. But man, those minimum quantities can be deadly. Did you find a company that was flexible and had reasonable minimum quantities, or how did you go about finding this company, and what kind of minimums do they have?
Yeah, I use a supplier called S&S Activewear.
Okay.
They are a shirt supplier for the entire country. There's others like Alpha Broder, or I think Carolina Tees is one. Now, they don't have minimums. You can order one shirt. Of course, you're going to pay a little bit more for it.
Sure.
Unless you were to buy 12 shirts or 24 shirts or 48 shirts and on and on and up. But they're the cost of entry for an apparel company, especially a graphic tee, is relatively low. Even if you went to find a local screen printer to do them for you, if you didn't know how to screen print, you could easily have 12 shirts made. And now the other beauty is with the direct to garment printing, which has come a long way, which is basically large inkjet printers that can print on a garment, a T-shirt. You could have one made. It might cost you $12, but hey, that is just to see if your design looks cool on a shirt, if anybody would like it, and so on. It's pretty cheap.
So did you ever just come up with a design, throw it out on social media or on the internet and say, hey, who likes this shirt, and take pre-orders before you actually invested in that design or that color shirt? Or you always made to order first and then sold whatever you had on hand?
Well, when I first started, I'm dating myself. I mean, back then they didn't have that. And so I'd print 12 or 24 shirts and hope that they would sell.
Okay.
Nowadays, you can do it on social media. Then there's companies out there like Printful or Scalable Press where you can put an entire website together and not have made a single design, where they'll print one or 201 or 2,001 for you if you have something that's a huge hit. But you could use those for fulfillment services and then social media to see if you've got a graphic that some people would love,
right,
on a shirt. Yeah. So it's gotten a lot easier than when I first started.
Sure, I'm sure you can make
to see. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm sure you can make examples of a shirt without even making one now because of graphics and social media, and you could say, hey, here's a new t-shirt design. Who likes it? And just go by the number of likes as far as how many you want to make, which is pretty cool. Without having, the only thing you're investing really is the time to make that infographic, and that's it.
Right. Well, and you can even use Photoshop. I mean, of course, I'm experienced with Photoshop, but the new designs, I use mock-ups of using Photoshop to then take the graphic, place it on a mock-up of a shirt, and then so they almost look like they're the printed shirt online.
Right, exactly.
You could use that. So you could use that on social media to see what people think. Yep.
That's excellent. So Trey, help me understand, because I think a lot of listeners, they watch Shark Tank, and the people go on there with $1 million valuations. I like this show to be a little more real, meaning that we talk about the highs, we talk about the lows. Would you mind sharing with us a low point? I know you mentioned earlier where you were scraping to get by early on. What got you through that low? And number two, tell me about a big success story, a big order you got into a certain store, a high that you also got to experience, because I think it's important to learn from the lows but enjoy the highs. So can you give us an example of each one?
Sure. Well, starting in order with the low, after those first couple years, and the fact that I think, and obviously looking back, it was a mistake to kind of let the illustration career fold up too quickly. I had to go get a job at, I was a janitor, or what do you call them today?
Custodians?
Custodian. I was a handyman for a couple of years. After the first 2 years, I decided I needed something, obviously needed some income. So I would work whenever on Fish Face, whenever the time was, but I had to kind of switch my priority back to, I got a job as a handyman or a custodian, or worked for a contracting company for a little while. But,
okay.
After 2 more hard years, it finally turned around by, again, like I had told you, going to a gift and retail show, and then just keep adding those retail shows where it became and that happened really, really quick. I knew through word of mouth, and there's publications out there that tell you where shows are, both gift and retail, or craft and art shows. I added those really, really fast, and then, would do a show almost every weekend, and was able to give up on not having to be a handyman or, working for a contractor.
Right. Get back to your passion.
Yeah, I got back to the passion, which then fueled, gave me some money to get back into the trade shows, have a better display, and so on. So that by the time through the middle of Fish Face, when the trade shows seemed to be much more active, we added, we got into Myers grocery stores for a while. We got into the company's called Bonton, but they have they own a ton of small retailers back in the day, that Bergner's. So we got into all those stores, and still doing art and craft and retail shows, because I just never quite, I just never, I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket, so I would never give up on one or the other.
Right.
So it just made my life busier, but we were also doing really, really well. So, and then the last part was, as the wholesale has kind of gone away, the internet's come along. So,
right.
So today we're doing just as well as we ever have, because I think of the internet and shows and things. So
good for you. Congratulations. But it shows you that sometimes,
thanks.
You have a great idea and great product and great concept, but even great ideas and great concepts struggle for a period of time. And I know I've had periods where I found that, I have this brand, I want to keep pushing, and we're growing, but the bills come every month, but our sales aren't necessarily equal every single month. And having a family and having responsibilities, it's tough to have all your eggs in your own basket. And as much as you love being an entrepreneur and being self-employed, I think it's definitely easier to go back and work full-time for somebody. But obviously, the business that grows is the one that you put your time into. So I'm sure it was a real mental struggle for you to give up on Fish Face for a period of time, or spend less time with Fish Face and go get another job. And maybe that was pressure from your spouse or your family. And that's a tough place to be as an entrepreneur. But you realize at that point you had to do something.
Right. Even in the very beginning too, like I had told you, I had went out and contracted with some screen printers. And gosh, we, about 5 or 6 years into Fish Face, I had gotten, again, by being at a trade show, I had gotten an order for JCPenney's.
Wow.
And so we had thousands of shirts to print. So again, I went out and contracted with a couple of smaller printers here locally. But the nightmare was that when I got the shirts, they didn't cure them properly. So if you were to wash the shirt, the print would wash off.
Oh, that's terrible. Especially for a big retail like JCPenney. You finally hit a home run, and all of a sudden now you got a bunch of returns and quality control issues. So you go from a high to a low pretty quick.
Well, I had learned through learning the screen or knowing I learned the process, even though I wasn't screen printing, to go and wash the shirts. So as soon as I got the first box from this guy, I went and washed them and knew right away. So I mean, we lucked out. We had some time built in.
Oh, okay. You haven't delivered
And
to JCPenney yet.
He redid all of them.
Oh, good.
For me.
Well, that could have been
At his
catastrophic.
cost.
That'd be your last order
Yeah,
from
yeah.
JCPenney if that happens. All your shirts you give to them.
Right. But I learned from that lesson that then I became a screen printer. Actually, through the mid part of Fish Face 2, we had 2 presses and dryer. We bought all the equipment because I said I'm not going to trust anybody to print my shirts any longer.
It's a very valuable experience that you learned.
Yeah, so I learned to screen print, and then I had a few folks working for me, and so on. So, yeah.
That's hard, though. I mean, obviously, if your passion is growing the business, now you're doing screen printing and terrible temperatures. I know those dryers are incredibly hot.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a real test of your desire to get through and your passion, because it's easy to say, you know what, I'm just not meant to deal with the screen printing and the screens and the ink and all this other stuff that has to happen. But you realize if you owned it yourself, you can hold yourself accountable, and you can make sure there's good quality control. Or someone else did it, there's a little bit of unknown factor. And like you said, who'd have thought that when they wash that shirt, that they'd have the image go away, and therefore you're gonna have a lot of returns and a lot of QA and quality control issues and things that would hurt the brand's name. But fortunately, you caught it soon enough; it didn't end up hurting the brand. Fortunately.
Yeah. Right. But it also, by owning my own equipment, learning how to do it all. I mean, I knew what the process is, and then today, we don't do any of the screen printing. We do. I'm back to having it fulfilled by other screen printers. But I've learned enough about the business and the process that this time when I went out to hire a fulfillment center or screen printers, I knew what to look for in them and and what kind of quality I was looking for. So now we don't, and I haven't had that issue ever again. But
that makes sense. You have the requirements. Hey, if you're gonna do screen printing for me, I need this, this, and this. And if you can't do it, we won't do business.
Right. So
that's excellent. Yeah. Well, Troy, make sure all the people listening and watching can get a hold of your products and cool designs. It's fishface.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you on Facebook and other social media too?
Yep. And the handles for all of it is always Fish Face Goods.
Fish Face Goods.
On
okay. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, all those?
Yep. They're all Fish Face Goods.
Fish Face Goods. Well, excellent. Well, Troy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've had a crazy schedule. You travel all the time. I've been trying to line this interview up with you since November, so I'm so grateful you took the time to talk to us today and help other entrepreneurs and business owners that are out there that are talking about creating their own brand, help them get some real life understanding of what it takes.
Yeah,
so I appreciate you being with me.
I appreciate you having me on. I can talk about entrepreneurship like all day long. So it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. You have a great story, and I appreciate you sharing with our audience.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you for tuning in to WDRB Media. This is the Perky Collar Radio Show, and we'll see you next week.